we wanted to pay respects to the Nam people and the originary clan of the Kulin Nation. So they're just the First Nations people of both Melbourne and Sydney, where we reside. And we just wanted to pay respects to the elders, past, present, and future, and just to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Australia is a stolen, we're still living on stolen land here, and always will, and always will be, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So just wanted to start with that acknowledgement. I think it's important in light of our discussion as well, but also important to acknowledge the First Nations of this country.
Do people do that before every talk in Australia? Because I just saw another thing where someone did that. Is that like just standard practice? That's beautiful. Is it standard practice?
Yeah, it's something that the country's adopted recent. Well, yeah, it's been for a little while, and it's a choice that's made. So you usually find it will come from a particular, leaning.
I saw it in a cricket documentary with this guy Scott Boyland, who's just become part of the Australian cricket team.
Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful to know that you guys are actually seeing that, so it actually is getting out. So it's great.
I thought I would start though, guys, just with a brief introduction to everybody. A lot of the audience that are watching this Q&A would have done so post watching Mutant. So, all right, I might start with Lebo. Is that the right pronunciation just for your name?
Yeah.
If we could just start with a little bit about you and your background and some of what your involvement has been in the film so far.
My name is Lebo Rasethaba. I am the co-director on the film. I sort of practice in South Africa as a documentary filmmaker, but also, of course, make TV adverts and music videos, and have been kind of living at the nexus of, where sort of pop culture meets subculture, high-end films meet documentary, and Mutant kind of comes out of this, and it's because of the journey that my friend Nthato and I have walked, as him as a musician initially and me as a documentary maker, and myself and Nthato decided to get together, and we made this film called Mutant. It took us about six and a half years to make. I mean, we're kind of still in the process of making it because of all the back end stuff that we're trying to do. We got to meet our brother Isaac, and we walked the journey with him. And now we formed this kind of lifelong bond, which I'm grateful for, because it's the kind of things that film gives you, is, bonds.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Lebo.
Fantastic.
Nthato, if I could ask you to unmute.
Yeah, Nthato Mokgata. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, background as a musician, but also visual artist. I bring a passion just generally for a lot of art forms, but my background is hip hop. And that was energy and love and first passion that we came into this with, and that's how I even encountered Isaac, like maybe 20 years ago or something, when I moved to Cape Town, like around 2002. Yeah, so it's on to Isaac to introduce himself. The man, the I.
The man,
one and only.
The man, all right.
Because all right, yeah, because I'll do all right. I'm actually very blessed. I'm Isaac Mutant, right? Grew up in Mitchell's Plain, so my background would be what? My background would be hip hop. I've always been hip hop. My occupation would be working on people's nerves, man, and I do it so nicely. I've tried to expand myself. I just go day by day, man. I've learned that recently learned that I can be a carpenter as well, and these kinds of things. I'm building and stuff. I started to grow plants, man. I'm growing some stuff that's not really legal, but semi-legal right now. Expand consciousness, my own consciousness, and people around me's consciousness, because I've grown a lot. I'm not so angry anymore. I'm still frustrated, but I've learned to channel myself. So that kind of defines me, Rasta. I've anchored into that. I've been blessed to meet Nthato and Lebo, during my moments with Dukum, and I feel so very blessed actually for this opportunity they gave me to exhibit who I am and my frustrations and in my experiences in all these kinds of things, and having opportunity to say what I want to say. And right now I'm doing my solo album again. I'm back on the horse, doing my thing, doing music, hip hop, bumping hip hop. That's where I'm at. Now with this film, Middle Finger with Nail Polish, Thanks to my two brothers over here. Yeah.
Yeah. I could attest to some nail polish. It works. Yeah, I just wanted to throw to Mick now and just let him do a bit of a bio on just a little bit of your background, Mick, and your interest in the film.
Well, I'm Gav's brother, so it's first and foremost. From South Africa myself. We came over, I was quite young. I was only 7 years old when I came. So I'm Australian. I'm pretty much Aussie. But coming to Australia, seeing, I suppose, a lot of parallels that were reminiscent of a system that we escaped from, essentially existing in the country that we're living. We're actually existing in an apartheid system here at the moment, but it's done so well that we don't actually even get to see our First Nations people. A lot of them live, we don't have any connection to them at all. So a lot of those things sort of resonated with me growing up. And then, I gravitated towards hip hop culture myself. I got a couple of, I'm 48 years old, so I'm a little bit older, but, from that same sort of generation, a lot of the, hip hop in general, hip hop culture, the 5 elements, MCing, breaking, graph was a big thing as well. And that's the circles I ended up moving in a lot of ways. There's a lot of parallels between myself and you, Isaac. I saw watching the film, and I love that when something you watch does that, because it says it's telling the story right, and it's resonating in the right way without actually trying to be too, I suppose, self-absorbed in any way. You weren't telling just your story. I think you were telling a lot of people's story.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Mick and I were talking a little bit before this, and we were kind of going, like, we often wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed in South Africa as kids. And I feel like Isaac and Michael have these like parallel realities. It's like Michael could have probably ended up being, a rapper in Cape Town, no doubt, I reckon.
Yeah, well, I knew after going back to South Africa,
Yeah.
I did realize I would have been in Cape Town for sure. Yeah.
Love Cape Town so much.
Getting screwed over by dodgy construction workers who take your money and then smoke it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, horses for courses, you know what I mean?
No comment.
Lots of
I just wanted to say, like, big up, it's the storytellers really that made that whole thing so possible, you see, because the storytellers, like, they have it on point. I feel so blessed about that.
Thank you, Isaac. So a little bit about me. So obviously I was born in South Africa as well, and came here, born in Joburg. And even though I've lived here for most of my life, I've always felt really connected to wanting to keep a connection to my roots in some way. And always felt like that was really important to me in terms of shaping an identity for me, but also really felt really proud as a coloured Australian and a heritage of a people who really, I think, was so fucking resilient and had to go through so much. And I think that really shaped me as a person. But also I think there was a lot of intergenerational trauma that I also found myself having to deal with as a result of what we had all been through. So there was some really strong resonances for me when I watched Mutant, because truth telling that I hadn't kind of experienced before in a film that felt like it was talking to me. My dad always said that, once you're born South African, you can't escape your politics. You were automatically kind of political as a result. So, but professionally, I've mainly worked as an editor and mainly in long form documentary. Currently, I work at the ABC, which is the national kind of government broadcaster for Australia. And more recently, or this year, I've become involved in the South African Film Festival. Felt really determined to make sure that this was going to be a part of this year's program. The voice of the coloured community is an important voice in the telling of a South African diaspora. And like what I admire about Isaac is that you're a truth teller, and even though it might be shocking for some people, it fucking tells the truth. And I feel like there's an honesty and a realness to that that is really important to be able to voice right now.
A big challenge in making the film was kind of Lebo and I coming from outside the so-called colored community. and feeling that it's an important story, but knowing that we also have to give it over to Isaac to tell as much as possible. It being so in your face is a function of, Isaac not holding back. That's his spirit. There was so much like tango of what to edit, what not to edit. Like, is this too extreme? Is this inflammatory? And the film has had kind of the different distribution license to some European festivals, some South African festivals, but we've been handing it out and giving it kind of hand-to-hand, old school mixtape style in people's inboxes and just sending the links, and people appreciate it. People in the color community appreciate it for what it says and what it is.
Isaac was also a big part of the distribution model. I remember us having like this password protected link that we were so precious about right at the beginning of the journey. And then going on like Facebook and seeing Isaac is just sharing that.
Me and my big mouth, man.
This is that's the way it's got to be, though.
Yo, man, I was Hollywood, man. So I'm like, yo, check this shit out, man. I'm superstar. Glad you guys didn't cut me out about it. I'm told my chick.
No, in all honesty, Lebo, Isaac and I are running a scheme. I've been giving the passwords out as much as possible as well.
Not just me.
Like, why hold it back? People want to see it. They're not going to the festival in Switzerland. They give such positive responses. Just go to our inbox. People asked for it, gotten it, and given us such beautiful responses.
It reminds me a lot of that white label mentality back in the day with vinyl. And, they used to do the little promo copies, limited runs, sort of get it out to people and use all the avenues you got.
For us, the issue is not even about overseas. It's more about home. That sometimes it's so difficult to get your own people to see things because you don't get major distribution and licensing support from the big platforms.
So I know you guys are touching on this a little bit already, but I did want to get a sense of how the idea for this film started and what sort of creative collaborations you guys had prior to this film.
Oh man, me and Nthato been at it for years working on stuff together. We made a really I made a lot of music videos for Nthato during his music days. We realized that the appetite was more in human stories than more giving insight into like a music scene. So then we started on the journey of making a film that was going to focus on 3 people, Isaac being one of the 3. It became quite clear to us that Isaac's story was by far the most compelling one. Isaac was by far the most compelling character and the more willing character. And I think whenever you make a documentary, as you'd know, Gav, you need like an absolute buy-in from the subject, and they have to be 1000% down and 1000% committed, because if you don't see the direct value of the documentary, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
And Nthato, how did the idea for the film spark for you?
It wasn't even like idea for the film. The film just became, and it wasn't easy. It took fucking long, and it kept dying, but it just kept coming back and giving itself birth, and Isaac he took the story and made it happen. But then our energy and our ability and our capacity and our resources in finishing the film would dwindle through years. And then we just get these boosts of energy and be able to do it. And finally, I'm so glad that we did it. A big question in South Africa is with the Black consciousness. With a Black consciousness, Steve Biko background to it, of what is Blackness? Are we all Black? What is coloredness? And us growing up to say that no, we're all Black, and then also having to respect that no, there's a strong colored identity, there's a strong colored experience, and we wanted to speak to that. But we went to a talk at the we went to this talk at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Tell them about the talk.
There's these 2 young colored ladies who are a couple as well, and they're making a film. What they felt their contribution to this conversation was, we're sitting in this room, and as these girls these ladies are sort of presenting their kind of thesis, all the Black people in the room just kind of start shutting them down, literally, with a very quite aggressively. Start shutting them down. They're like, what are you saying? This doesn't make sense. And it kind of revealed to us a lack of empathy from Black people towards the kind of colored struggle, the plight of colored people, and just an even appreciation for them fighting to be heard. At the point at which Nthato and I realized that, you know, it's important for us as young, you know, Black men, making this film will then kind of force Black people to start developing a particular kind of empathy towards colored people's plight. So I think people have wanted to ask us this, but are kind of scared to ask the question, primarily because Isaac in the film says this documentary is perfect. But a lot of people will be like, what business do you guys have making this film? And it is because of this event that Nthato was speaking to, we realize why it is important for us to actually make this film, is to draw attention to a narrative that people are not only ignorant to, but also equally hostile to its pursuit to be heard.
But for us, Isaac, emerging out of like just his whole life experience and having such a clarity and look for enlightenment, for us is like a beautiful optimism, you know, like we think we're dreamers, you know, like
Oh no, absolutely.
To see Isaac stronger every day is like more power.
I might take it to Isaac now that you know, being the main character and having an experience of really kind of putting yourself up there and showing, I think, a degree of vulnerability at times that was actually quite kind of beautiful to watch, but also this truth telling, as well as this kind of expression of some of your anger around it. What was that experience like for you in terms of making the film over a long period?
My initial feeling was, or reaction was, yes, I'm gonna be in the film for once. And like I said earlier, me and my big mouth, my mouth got a life on its own. I had never really thought that deep before, like prior to the film, that deep about colored identity and who I am, you know, looking from outsider's point of view. The film gave me an opportunity to look at myself and people like me from an outside point of view. Like for instance, like how the Black community, the Black male, young male look at us and how we look at us ourselves, stripping yourself, right, to your core. And it's cool. I wanted to be stripped for a long time because we wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be heard. I'm from the ghetto, so a lot of times we just moan behind closed doors about this and that and this and that and this and that. I'm tired of just moaning behind closed doors, and I'm a rapper and I want to scream my frustrations and my issues and my problems. We journalists from the street, we MCs first and foremost. I want to, as much people as possible to hear what I have to say. So I was quite excited about that. I'm very glad that I made this kind of decision to work with Nthato and Lebo, because they produced this film so much exactly like I wanted it to be. You see, if it's very nicely packaged. They make me look like a superstar. Like I was open to show them these things, like as much of my world as possible, because I don't know anybody that one of my people that had the opportunity to show, you know, to tour guide anybody like an experienced filmmaker. I feel Ja, and I believe Ja was the driver behind this whole thing, man, because I felt kind of, this thing is never gonna happen, man, or whatever. I totally forgot about it, actually, until we moved to Hangberg, and all of a sudden these guys just popped up again, email, and like, yo, man, we're doing this thing again. We just find out, are we still doing that thing? Right at the point that I needed something big to happen, you see, and I was like, yo, my bro, Ja knows best, the Almighty knows best. This film, I put me in the class of Jimi Hendrix, then, middle. Big up Lebo and Nthato for that thing, middle. Whatever you did, brilliant. So yeah, that's how I feel. I'm very, very humbled.
Yeah, it's a really great reflection. I mean, when I watched it, I was like, fuck, this guy's like Kendrick Lamar. Like, you know, like I couldn't stop watching you on frame. Like, I find like whatever you guys did just made you seem so magnetizing. Like, but I find it not only in the film, but even in your video clips, you know, like I think stylistically, I really felt like there was such a resonance between, you know, the clips from Dukum as well as the film. And I guess the question for me was that like an intentional stylistic choice that you guys made in terms of how you wanted to craft the film?
A big part of us wanting to work with with Isaac was the aesthetics that we had already seen. Lani had come out a couple years before we met. And Isaac, coming from like relatively, in Cape Town, there's like a romantic notion. Mitchell's playing Cape Town is like our ground zero for hip hop, you know. When people talk about the Bronx, where Isaac's from, that's like our ground zero. And Isaac coming from all those different schools, Dukum was his reincarnation. And to see such bugged visuals was exciting. And that was a part of us working together. To bring that into the film was absolutely intentional. But on the flip side, we also wanted to show air and breath and space in another way. Like we think, you know what I mean? Dukum does have its way of looking, but Lebo, Imran, and I, we've also got another, I think, dreamier sensibility, and it's more of a spiritual eye on the world, you know? And I think it's speaking to the different things in the movie. You know, when we want to soften up and go spiritual or emotional, that's one side. And the rage, Dukum is a very great aid for the rage.
So I think of like visuals as something like inherently therapeutic and calming and soothing. There's this news clip where it talks about like Mitchell's Plain or the Cape Flats being one of the most dangerous areas in the world or whatever, and being and juxtaposing that deliberately with like children playing on bikes and letting that shot just linger on screen, or like an old man buying fish, and being very deliberate about what we were trying to say about the world. That we, you know, and it's something that's echoed in Isaac's niece, who's just like, yeah, you know, you guys might see like this kind of gangster state, but this is where we live. And I think it was very important for us to show people the beauty of that and draw attention to the humanity that still exists within those spaces and how people connect and coexist as people who love each other and have capacity for care and, you know, softness and
community,
and that soft and community, and let that come through specifically through just these long contemplative meditative takes. Nthato did a fantastic job with the music of creating a kind of sonic bed.
When watching it, for me personally, I got a lot of parallels from Melly Mel, and you actually look a little bit like Melly Mel, and it was the message and some of those scenes walking through, you know, the townships, you could nearly hear the message. But yeah, and I think that's what makes it really authentic. You know, you were able to really capture that, Isaac, and you know, sort of give it in a way that was brutal, but it was honest.
From a filmmaking perspective, and even the reverb in the sound mix, Nthato, I thought that was really genius. Like I thought the sound mix on this film was actually next level. So, you know, a thumbs up for that, absolutely.
We started working with an editor that we work with, that Lebo works with quite a lot on commercials, a guy called Will, and he connected us with someone who was assisting him in Lebo, a young lady called Lebo. And as we worked with Lebo, we just connected so well, and she's the illest. She's actually the illest, yeah. So all of those bits and finesse and that, even that reverb and that rhythmic cutting, that's Lebo's genius.
As Isaac said, just masterfully, you know, masterful storytelling, I think, on that level, which is,
I think something people don't talk about enough with documentaries is the challenge of it, that it's this massive puzzle, and Mutant has had maybe 6 reincarnations. You know, it's been 6 years, and it's had these different structures, these different configurations of the information. It feels like it was like planned to think, but it was actually like this mad wrestle, like just this crazy, like, a lot of bone and gristle and blood. It was, yeah.
I totally understand.
I guess that's where the masterful storytelling comes from. I guess it's like
yeah.
It's a sculpture that you have to cut at.
Birthing a really ugly child to begin with, though. And so you have to deal with the ugly bits before you get to the, you know, the bits that are going to shine. So, so that's really great. I did want to go back to get Isaac's thoughts on this in particular, on what you think colored is, Isaac, and whether or not you feel it's something that we should embrace and celebrate, or whether or not you think it's something that we should reject as something that was imposed upon us by an apartheid system.
That's always a difficult question. what's the definition of a colored, or what is a colored? What does it mean? Let me put it to you like this. I read this newspaper thing years ago that could have been in high school, of Marike de Klerk. It was Evie de Klerk's wife. So she said she reckons that the colored community is a leftover race of all other races. No 3-4 people look the same. One person would have like Dutch blood, descendancy. Another person would have like Khoi blood. Another person would have like Javanese blood, right? But because you need to understand where the colored community comes from, right? It's rooted from back in the day within slavery. The slaves were raped by the colonizer, right? Because the whole Khoisan and Khoi movement or spirit has woken up, right? So people are trying to prove themselves to be connected to the Khoi heritage, because apparently there's people are getting land and now everybody's now a chief and everybody's now a prince and everybody's now, that's the sort of thing that's arising now.
There's just two systems of land. One side is white people either sell you land or chiefs sell you land. That's how land in South Africa is split up. And the land that chiefs give you is at a cheaper rate, and it's usually related to, I mean, even strangers go to places and buy the land from chiefs and it's cheaper. But being having the hereditary thing makes it somewhat easy.
I mean, I guess I can talk to it from an Australian experience to a degree, but a lot of people who have got Aboriginal blood, even if it's a percentage, will still claim to be of Indigenous descent in Australia, and more there's a pride associated with that. That's much more apparent now than it's ever been, and I guess after having my DNA done, not really knowing what my African heritage was, and then finding out like, well, I'm actually 26% Khoisan, that would be like me denying my Aboriginal heritage if I was here and not staking, or not claiming that. And I think part of what comes out in the documentary is this idea that it was kind of whitewashed in a way. So anything that was Bushman or Khoisan was meant to be something that was othered and something that we had to be ashamed of. I remember as a kid, like if somebody, like when I was at school and I came to Australia, like if somebody called me black, like I was tormented by that. It was like there was such a program that was instilled in me at a really young age about what was going to be acceptable. I guess I was kind of speaking to that, because now I'm like, do I call myself colored or do I call myself Khoisan?
I agree with you. See, I think I personally feel like, look, man, all these titles in little boxes was imposed on us, right, in the first place. So I kind of have a problem with that. So, but one have to look at it and accept who you are as a person. You see, everything that happened right before me, that in my bloodline, right, since I don't know, I'm 20 generations ago up to this point, that I'm sitting here. All those things made me who I am today. But it's also important to understand who you are and where you come from and all these sort of things. But at least this time around, I can decide who I want to be within the circumference, obviously, of that history and that descent and that heritage. We were told, like, you are now colored and you're going to be this and you're going to be that and you're going to be this. Your name is Adam or Eve and whatever, you see. So that's kind of the frustration and the confusion that's happening in the so-called colored community. And it's a whole lot of confusion, but it's cool. At least there's dialogue happening, and there's people really curious to find out who they are and who we are. The whole colored idea, it's not vibing well with people. I don't know. It's always I can't really answer. I can never answer that question. What defines a colored and what defines what isn't colored? What's the meaning of that? I can just answer something.
And does it even matter?
Can I ask a question? Why was Rasta so important in the 80s and 90s in Mitchell's playing? Like,
yo, man, it still is even today. The brothers brought the spiritual thing, because we had to calm down. Yo, man, smoke this thing, calm down, man. Think about this, that. Because we were very fiery, you see. Just wanted to kill everybody, like. But we were that fiery. We were that fire.
Do you think that's why it's also been important, that it's helped you reason?
Every time I go to Europe, I just feel this fucking anger. How can Europeans live this lavish and this normal? I didn't know what normal means because I lived in the toilet pot. It calms me the fuck down. Like, it matured me as a person, right? So my anger I was like this loose cannon before, this loose Uzi that just wanted to bah, 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 bah,
It was the thing that helped control the Mike
space of my life.
Tyson in you then.
Yeah, man. You can be so much effective if you see the whole picture. And I'm so glad to be a spokesperson for my people, or people that feel like me. And it's not even a color thing. I like to think I represent poverty, you know, people that's impoverished and marginalized. It's not a color thing. People must understand that. It just so happens that colors are a big slice of this group. I represent poverty. I don't believe in poverty. I believe it's a curse. So I fight that.
I think, Isaac, there was a moment in the film where you talked about anger, and I felt like it really struck me quite deeply, because you were like, it's almost like you had this realization that, oh, we have all this anger, and if we don't find a way to express it, we turn it on each other. And it was like you kind of almost stopped and you caught yourself saying it, and you were like, oh shit. And you've always used your music as a vehicle to be able to express your anger. And so I guess my question is, you know, for a younger audience watching this, you know, like a young colored Cape Town hip hop artist, like who's feeling disempowered, who's feeling like they've got so much fucking anger about their situation, you know, what advice would you give them?
The way I live is like, be true to yourself, man. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Like the colored community is very much ashamed of who we are. That the moment you're talking about in the film, that I realized that implosion, because it hit me like a brick. Oh, that's why all the gangsterism and blah blah blah. I would advise somebody to like accept yourself for who you are, because the best thing, Dr. Sebi said, that's the best thing that could happen to you is being you being born as you. Doesn't matter what color you are. That's the best thing that could have happened to you. Learn more about yourself and be true to you. Trust your instinct. Trust yourself, because we weren't born without tools. It's amazing. It starts internally. One would appreciate each other more, like, you know, the tribe more. There's only one race, really. It's the human race. And I really believe there's only one color. It's blood, bro. It's red. That's really the only color that matters.
Word, brother.
I love all that wisdom, Isaac. That's really great. I think that's really going to resonate with you know, with so many people in terms of that. I feel like a lot of what comes from the color community is issues of self-worth and insecurity, and not feeling like they're good enough, and always feeling like we've got something to fucking prove all the time, you know, because there's always a sense of us kind of having to fight for stuff, because it's an opportunity, isn't it? Like, I think it's an opportunity to look internally, because we're going through all of that stuff, so that you can really find out about who you are and what makes you tick. So I think those pearls of wisdom are really, really, really great. So I really appreciate that. I'd like to sort of start to wrap up by talking about the future of the film, and what your hopes and dreams are for it.
I would just love for the film to be. I remember a time as a hip hop head where there was just basic education, certain films you have to see, you know, that became more and more global at a certain point. And I'd love for this to be part of that canon. But truthfully, it's just for us to keep punting it and keep pushing it and really make it as accessible as possible.
Isaac, I wanted to find out, you know, what your kind of aspirations are as an artist.
That's a difficult question. There's a lot of things. I would like number one, not to make money. You know, I don't want to be rich, but I would like to make money, and I would like to perform as much as possible. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a rapper. I'm a performer. I would like to perform everywhere. I would like to come to Australia. Yeah, and I would like for everybody to buy my album, because I'm the dopest MC in Cape Town, South Africa, maybe. Hit me up on Facebook. Yep. What I would really love for everybody is there's one dude, the ancient man, African man, Emperor Haile Selassie. I see what he says. He's talking about one love. South Africans we tried hating each other. Clearly, it's not working. It's not working, right? So he's talking about this crazy idea, one love, and respect each other in roots and culture. I would love for everybody to check that out.
You're giving me the Bobby Marley vibes, bro. Definitely, you know.
Emperor Haile Selassie, man.
We'd love to have you here, man. It'd be amazing to see you perform live, but also, I think what I really love about your voice is that we don't often get the voice from the ghetto in South Africa, in terms of where you've come from, what your life experience has been. Often the people in those places are the ones who aren't, like, they're just not heard, and most of the time they're just fucking trying to survive.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. We'll try and get you out of here as soon as possible.
I like that.
I have to give a shout out to the National Film and Video Fund. They really supported making this film, you know. Like I say, Ndevo's an editor and she's like a pro top level editor. So it wasn't cheap to get her to do her amazing stuff.
Is there anything that anyone else would like to say in closing?
I would first and foremost, really, I keep doing this, like Nthato, Lebo, Imi, Sifiso, big ups, man, for you guys. I've been working on Nthato and Lebo's nerves, man, you know, but thanks for the patience and thanks for making this happen. To you guys for having us this moment, you know, on this thing. You make me feel like someone. You made me feel like someone with this film. It's been a dream of mine to tell my story on camera and visual. Big ups for that, man. Make me.
What you're saying there's a testament to what's been produced. You know, the authenticity and the conviction behind everything is expressed by that, and I think that's why you're feeling like this is really hitting home for you, because they got to tell your story the right way, and I think you guys, you know, hit that nail on the head properly.
Yeah, just really grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk to you guys. Just thank you so much for your time and the wisdom and the thoughts, and just really just learned so much from just this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing this. And
thank you. I also wanted to just add, like, if anybody, any institutions would like to have the film to add to their libraries, any hip hop heads would like to add it to their library, just, you know, please get in contact. And like Isaac says, check his music out as well, add it to your library.
Yeah, it's great that the South African Film Festival has been able to host this film. So I'm really appreciative, grateful for the work that Claire does, you know, tirelessly. She's a volunteer, and all of us are volunteers on the program, trying to bring South African voices and films to an international audience. I've been really just impressed by the standard and quality of the storytelling that comes out of the region. There's some really great talent and some really great storytellers in South Africa. So, you know, well done to all you guys. Great.
Well, pleasure, guys. Great work with everything you've put together. It's a needed story, and it's great that you did it.
Thank you very much, James. Much appreciated.